Artificial intelligence algorithms are one of the most incredible things that human beings have created so far. I mean, they enable us to do amazing things, like become anyone we want to be. Like Robert De Niro, for instance, a famous actor I've always admired. Taxi, The Godfather, classics, right? Or Brad Pitt. He played some really interesting roles. Fight Club, Benjamin Button, oh, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I just watched that one. And this face, I mean, who wouldn't want to be Brad Pitt for a day? Of course, there's Joe Rogan. So yeah, AI and digital algorithms are really cool. But there's something else about these big tech algorithms that's far more sinister. If you're an internet business owner, big tech companies like Facebook use algorithms to filter your content so that even the people that asked to see your content don't get to. And if you're running ads on their platform, these algorithms are currently driving your ad costs through the roof, which if you're an internet business owner really sucks. And in case you haven't noticed, Google has officially forgotten their rule about don't be evil. I mean, check out this chart. In a nutshell, what it amounts to is Google is now scraping everyone's website and stealing their content so they can put it at the top of the Google search result page. That way, they never leave the walled-in garden of Google and actually go to the website of the person who actually created the content itself. I guess Google's logic is, who cares about all the time and energy that website owners put into the content on their sites? Let's just take their content and use it for our site. And of course, if you're an internet business in e-commerce, then I don't even have to tell you about AI and algorithms, because you deal with them every day. Because Amazon has the most powerful AI going. They know what everyone is going to buy next before they even do. And you know they control over half of the entire e-commerce market. So you don't have a choice but to answer to them if you have any kind of physical product to offer. And speaking of not having a choice, recently I realized that I didn't have a choice either. And that's why I decided to call on my friends to form the Coalition to Save Internet Business, the source of the latest and most accurate strategies to help you win. It's time for all of us to join forces, share the latest winning strategies, and fight big tech in this war that they're waging against us. Click through now, and I'll see you on the other side.
So hopefully you hear me. I think you do. Let me just ratchet this down a little bit. And so we are live. And so welcome to another live stream where we're going to be talking today, the final takeaways really of The True Believer, which is really a study in the psychology of mass movements. It really, it reveals a lot about human nature, some of it not necessarily that pretty, and somewhat scary, especially in today's times. However, as marketers, what makes us good as marketers is understanding the psychology of crowds, the psychology of people and groups, and how they make decisions and how we make decisions even when we're alone, but influenced by the behaviors of others, which we all are. And it's one of the reasons, right, why the skill of selling and the skill of marketing are very different. And they're very different because one is on a very individual basis and one is on a very group basis. Now, obviously, we can parse it many ways. And, you know, what if you're selling to a group of people? Yes, but in general. And so part of being a good marketer is really understanding the dynamics of social influence and groups and things of that nature. And that's why a book like this is so valuable. So I didn't get as far in the review of my notes as I wanted to, although I did make another pass through it. And so definitely have, I think I can be a little bit more crisp today as far as covering certain elements that I want to make sure that we cover. But man, I've been swamped. I also put new tats on. For those of you who don't, how can you see them? For those that don't know, I really wanted to get tattoos when I was younger and I didn't. And so now I'm 50. It's kind of late to the party. So these are fake and I get them for like $1 off of Amazon and I like to wear them from time to time. Makes me feel a little bit more like a badass. So it's just, we're having friends over on Saturday for the Conor McGregor fight. And I thought I would get in the spirit of things. And so I did. So anyway, so as always, guys, if you're new, just watching, please say hi. Let me know where you're from. It is always better to make this a dialogue than a monologue. And, the reason I say that is that I'm doing these live streams for a couple of reasons. One reason is to make an impact and help anyone that tunes in any way that I can. And so that's why I do these. What helps me, what makes it worthwhile, right, is being exposed to, for the business that is to be exposed to new people, which is why your commenting, your emoting, and your sharing is so vitally important to me, especially when there are other things out there like Clubhouse where I can jump on and immediately get like not a gazillion, but many hundreds of followers like in a heartbeat, right? And it's so much more passive. I could be doing that while I'm in the bathroom or something. Here I am for you guys, and I do it because I enjoy doing it, and I hope you get enjoyment out of it as well as learning. And so what I'm going to ask of you today is to really kind of think about, as we're going over these, not just, oh, that's interesting, right? Or, oh, that's something to maybe remember. But knowing that, like, how can you apply it? What can you take away from what I'm sharing here in these quotes that makes a difference in your marketing, how you might approach marketing just a little bit different, right? And that, if you do that, you're more likely to get an answer than if you don't do that. And so my strongest suggestion to you is not just allow these things to be interesting, although they are interesting. At least I find them interesting. Oh, by the way, I got my my iMac Mini or my Mac Mini, whatever it's called, but I got it about 15 minutes ago. It just got delivered. So I was all jonesing to do this live stream with my new computer, but it'll have to wait until next week. But anyway, so yeah, it's kind of the same thing I've shared in numerous of these live streams that, I had this coach about, and we've all heard like getting clear about what it is we want, like creating a vision of what we want. And that is important. The next step of that is, what would you need to notice for in order to notice opportunities to get there faster, to get rid of obstacles that are currently in your way from there to that vision, et cetera, right? Because if you never ask that question, like what should you be noticing for, the odds of you noticing those things are obviously a lot smaller, right? So with that said, as I'm sharing these things, your goal should be to look at it through the filter of not only your experience, which you have to do, right? But look at it from the filter of what you're trying to create, what outcomes you're going after. And if you can look at it through that filter, right, then you should be able to spot more easily connections to what it is that I'm showing you versus where you want to go, right? Anytime that I have forced myself to find something that could be useful for my business, I have found something, right? Doesn't matter what the thing is. If I walk into any experience, whether that's watching TV or talking to a friend or whatever, and I'm very clear on my intention that like to listen for or pay attention to and try to find anything related here that I can take back, I will find something. And you will too, especially if you've never done that before, if you just get better at it. So it's a great skill to have, by the way. I mean, it's totally not the reason I brought it up here, but just since I opened up that can of worms, it's a great skill to have because, it's one of the reasons that I'm able to find and do the research that I do, and possibly I'm better at it than most, is because like as I'm going through things, I'm looking for the thing that's connected to the previous thing that I already connected, and I'm trying to find the next piece. And one of the reasons I can find that next piece is because I know to look for it, right? So same thing here. It's like using it as a filter. And actually, I guess to tie up this long tangent, to make it even more applicable, I learned this concept, or not this concept, so this process from Kenrick Cleveland. And it was about eliciting people's criteria. And we used it in my hypnosis centers in the sales area of the business. And it was highly effective. And I want to tell it to you, but it's based on kind of something I just was sharing as far as like what to notice for. And I used it in a webinar too, and it was highly effective in that webinar as well. And I modified it for a webinar with Kenrick. Like I asked Kenrick, by that time I knew Kenrick well, and I had just asked him, like, this was so powerful, how would you apply it to a webinar? So the strategy was, and I don't remember the NLP categorization for it. I think it's like eliciting values, but who knows? Or no, it's eliciting criteria. And the idea is that, like, if someone came into one of my hypnosis centers, right, and they came in and they wanted to stop smoking and they'd been smoking for 20 years. Well, there's a reason they're there today, right? Like, something happened. Something made them decide to pick up the phone, call, make an appointment, come in for the free screening, blah, 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 blah. And the better that we are clear at what brought them in today, the easier it's going to be to sell them, right? So the way Kenrick would talk about this, and the way he explained it, if I remember correctly, and we're going back like 20 years on this, is that people don't just offer that information, partly maybe unconsciously, as like protection, because when you know that thing for them in that case, you have a lot more leverage than you certainly would have without it. And so you got to like unbury it. And the recommendation was to go 3 levels deep. So the person would answer, you would confirm. I'll give you an example in a second. Confirm, and then get more specific. And then they would answer again, confirm, and get more specific. So it might go something like this. And remember that sales is not my wheelhouse, but here it goes. So John, I totally get that you want to stop smoking. That's what brought you here. But why today? Like, what specifically occurred for you that has you sitting in this chair now, as opposed to a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago? You told me that you wanted to quit smoking for the last 10 years. Why today? Like, what brought you here? Well, what's important to you? And so that's another way of saying it. Like, what's important to you, or what brought you here? And it's like, well, I have a son and I want to be around for my son. Right. And, all right, well, actually, a lot of people who stop smoking here tell me that it's for their children, right? And you specifically, your son. A lot of men specifically about their son, right, want to make sure that they stop for their son. But when you think about that, right? Like, what specifically about that, about being alive for your son, really matters to you? Like, when you think about being here for your son or not, like, what shows up for you? And well, I want to be there when he gets his first job, or starts his first business, or gets married, or hits a home run in Little League, or whatever it is. Got it. Great. And, stories like that a lot of people tell me. But I just want to ask you one more time, just to get it even clearer, when you think about being there for your son or not, right? Like, what's important to you about that? And, more comes out, right? And that last answer there often is like the driving force, right? And that if the salesperson then ties it back to that important thing, oftentimes it can facilitate them making the connection easier from what motivated the action to the purchase, right? So with the webinar, the way I altered that was to tell people, like, look, you could be at a lot of places on a webinar, and then you could be a lot of other places other than a webinar today. And I'm sure there are many places that might be even a lot more enjoyable than being on a webinar today. But you're here, and you're here for a reason. So I want, for your own benefit, because it will be helpful for you to get the maximum from this presentation, to just take a moment now, and I want to walk you through an exercise because it will help you, and write down, single sentence, why you're here today, like what brought you here, right? And people would write it down, and I'd say, great, now I want you to look at that answer and answer this. Why is that important to you, right? Like, when you think about that, why is that really important to you? So it might be like, I want to grow my business $100,000, and like, why it's important to me is because then I'll be able to spend less time working and more with my family and buy my dream car, right? Okay, great. If you got a second answer, I want to ask you one more time. Like, now that you look at that second answer, what's most important about that? Like, what, if you had to describe it to yourself, like, what is it? Like, what does that really provide you? And when you have that answer, here's what I want you to do. And then I might stop for a second. Then what I want you to do is I want you to get really clear on that third answer. And I want you to use that as the filter, getting that, right, for yourself. As I want you to look through all the content and everything I'm going to share with you tonight through that lens, because I want to speak to you getting that, right? And it's up to you to be clear about that and how what I'm providing you can give you that. I don't know what that is for you, but what I do know is that if you're clear about it and I speak to it, it will land and it will make a difference in your life, right? So now what I've done is I've had them get really clear. Like, if they came because they wanted to grow their business, I've made it more emotional for them if they went through the exercise with me of getting down to why they really want that. Now I'm asking them and giving them instructions, and it probably would have been good to probably remind them of it a couple times in the webinar. I did not do that. But now I'm asking them for that thing that they really want to use that as the filter of, like, I'm speaking to that. Now, that automatically amplifies the ability of what I'm saying. It's not going to take something that's not going to sell completely and make it like so that people want it, but it does make something that is desirable, or that is where you're creating desire through that webinar process, and makes it clearer on an emotional level that this thing will get me that thing that I deeply want. And totally tangential tip. I hope that's useful. I don't think in the many strategies that of mine that have been kind of out there, I don't think that one really ever made it out there. I don't think I ever explained in depth, like I just did, why I did that. But that was the that's something that I used to do or did, and that's the reason I did it. And I believe it to be very effective, but I can't tell you how effective or what difference it makes, because I never did the exact same webinar and just took that piece out and compared conversion rates. But I have seen it in a sales format so many times and so effective that that's why I asked Kenrick, like, how could I apply that to a webinar, and why I wanted to. So with that said, back to what we're talking about. We're talking about the true believer, and it's the psychology behind mass movements. And it says a lot of things about human nature that just isn't that nice. It's kind of icky. But that doesn't mean it's not true. And it doesn't mean that knowing these things can't be used in an ethical manner, right? Not an unethical manner, an ethical manner, but also gaining insight into, like, what goes on in the minds of others. And especially if any of this resonates with you, a lot of it resonates with me. It should be obvious to you, right? That it's not only resonating with you, it's resonating with others. Okay. So let's say hello to everyone. And yeah, what I'll do is, instead of getting into questions here, if you asked a question, I apologize. But what we'll do is, after I say hello to everyone, then you can ask me questions in here. And when I get to a break in what I want to show you, then we can start answering some questions too. So I hope that's good. I did a live stream today, by the way, for Italy. That was fun, although I totally lost track of time. I was actually 10 minutes late, which was kind of embarrassing. And what else? And I recorded a Steal Our Winners interview today, and about 10 other calls. One thing I'm really excited about, I guess this also I would love to share with you guys, and it is not about true believer, but it's also a marketing thing. I saw a presentation by Tim Bird. And, when I was really active in the day-to-day of growing my business, back then, I did a lot of A/B split testing. And I kind of stayed away from multivariate testing because at that time it seemed kind of complicated to me, and it wasn't really easy to do. But I went through this presentation that Tim Bird did of using Visual Website Optimizer, and how easy it is because it's plug and play, right? Like you pull up your page and you move the headline, put another headline in. If you want the video over there, you just drag it over there. And Google Optimizer does that too now. Anyway, what's interesting about multivariant testing that is kind of cool when you think about it the way that I'm going to share like now is that you really, if you have any offer or landing page or whatever that's public facing that your business derives profit from, you really should be continuously testing that and trying to improve that. With A/B split testing, it's sort of a pain in the ass, primarily because once one split test is done, you got to set up the next one, the next one, the next one. Whereas if you're setting up a multivariant test, it might take a while, right, with all the different possibilities, because if you change, let's say, 4 headlines and 3 buttons, right, like just 3 versions of one button, right, that's already 12 combinations. You add 2 different color backgrounds, there's now 24 combinations, right? So the combinations stack up pretty quickly. However, and you don't need to, you can test, 18 to 26 or so variables at a given time, and, not variables, different versions. So, about 4 times 4, right? Or 3 times 3, 9 times 3, right? Something like that. But when you set that up in a Visual Website Optimizer or a Google Optimizer, it then will take some time for it to figure out the best combination. However, you're also kind of taking care of your split testing for your testing for that period of time for that page. So it's a way to actually get a month's worth of testing, a month and a half worth of testing, all done in, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. It depends on how long it takes you, I guess, to just come up with the different ideas. And so one of the things that I spent my day on today was talking to one of the teams at Agora, because we're going on to Google Optimizer because that works more cleanly with our code. And so we were just getting all that in the works. And then next week we have a meeting with one of the best, on one of the promos that is working best now, with the best copywriters and the team to come up with the different versions so that we can then load it up into the system and have it run. And my whole goal there is that no page at any given time should not be continuously in test mode. We should always be trying to improve it. And when we have the amount of pages we have, that's a problem. And when we have split tests, that became you would need multiple people to do it. Here with this way, I believe it can be done with close to no people, one person maybe, and will dramatically make a difference. I mean, I've seen multivariant tests where a 500% increase, a 700% increase. I've seen not a gazillion. I've seen a lot of them that 200, 300% increase. And, that's not the first combo, but over time. And so it is idiotic for anyone, no matter how good they are, to assume that they've come up with the best headline, the best visual, the best video, the best call to action button right out of the gate. That happens Mega Millions gets one, or Powerball, and I think they're both at $1 billion now, so you know how frequently those are won. It just doesn't happen. And so all of us, we make our money based on the performance of a few vital pages that our business relies on. And if you don't have some kind of multivariate testing solution like Google Optimizer, which is free, just running in the background, continually testing, like, what are you doing? Like, that seems like such a no-brainer, and is something that, you know, you need to think about your list of priorities, but where that falls down. You know, this guy, Ryan Ballo, who I'm a huge fan of, who's helped me tremendously with nootropics and stuff. You know, he's a friend of mine too, and I'm actually getting him to contribute to Steal Our Winners this month as kind of like an extra bonus. But like his business, he's got this great nootropic supplement himself called Cortex. Cortex Labs is his company, and he's not on auto ship. So, you know, people buy one bottle and then he's got to try and sell them another bottle. And, you know, my whole thing with him right now, every time we talk, is, have you gotten like auto ship and continuity going? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, I'm not interested in anything else related to your business. Sorry. Because that is going to make a bigger difference for you than anything else, period. Not a new course, because you can have a new course, you make some money right now, but in a year from now, you're not going to be where you want to be unless like you get that continuity in place. That's just for him, right? But like, if you don't have a ongoing testing thing, that should be somewhere towards the top of your list. Now, if you're not making any money now, testing something that's not making any money is not going to make any difference, right? But if money is coming in, people are hitting a page, yeah, it should be continually split test with some kind of split tester, multivariant ideally. And if it's multivariant especially, make sure that you break up mobile traffic from desktop traffic, because, you know, how the elements perform as they're lined up matters whether it's a desktop or mobile. And the two will, if you combine them, you're not going to get as powerful a result. If you keep them separate, you're going to get different winners for each one. And that's just an option in Google Optimizer or Visual Website Optimizer, telling them which traffic you want to test on that, right? And but it should be done. And it's one of those low-hanging fruits that I see missing in many businesses, even businesses as big as Agora. And it's something that I've been pushing for a long time. But now that like I have this new appreciation that you can, like, multivariant is actually like a time saver, I now have even more of a desire to make sure that I see it like installed in process of running consistently in any businesses that my own, which we're getting up on, and also Agora and a bunch of other private clients, right? So, long tangent. I hope both of those were valuable. I think they are. That's why I shared them. And with all that said, remember what it is that you are looking for, what it is you want. I've got nothing to sell you tonight, so don't worry. I'm not going to use that deeper like desire for anything but good. But pay attention to that and think about like what we're learning here and how it could apply to growing your business. And with all that said, let's say hello to everyone. So, hey, Jane in DC, thank you for sharing. You are a hero. And Matt from England is here, and he shared. Oh my God, this is like such a beautiful day to see the first two comments of the day. See shared. Don't know when that happened, if ever. Hey, Lisa, good to see you in Miami, I believe, and Jason in Tampa, and Miboso and Miyuki in Tokyo, and John saying, wow, I guess that was to the AI video. So thank you for the compliment, even though obviously I didn't do it, but I had it created. Thank you, Mimboso, for sharing. You're my hero too. And Brian from Houston, good to see you, my friend. And Kayvon from Vancouver. And wow, Ubdala staying awake in Dubai to attend it live. Well, good for you. I hope you have a question that made it worth being here live. Dr. Vogelman from Coronado Islands. I always want to mispronounce them. I don't know why, but good to see you, Dr. Vogelman. And Miyuki, it is always good to see you. And that's dedication. Well, thanks for getting my notes done. How is your hand? Are you back to jumping rope? No, not yet. The hand surgeon hasn't called me back. Oh, I said I wasn't going to answer questions. I will get to that, though. I said I wasn't going to do that. I'm going to try and not do that. Bad Rich. So I will share that later, and especially if I remember. And Kayvon shared, so thank you, Kayvon. And Hugo in Miami, good to see you, my friend. And April, I'm always making an impact. Well, thank you for that, and happy Thursday to you, Christine, in Vermont. I like Vermont. Many good snowboarding experiences there. And Isabella in Germany, always good to see you. Isabella, I saw a friend of yours the other day, Eric from, I forget the name of Eric's company, but I told him to take a picture of us since he said he spoke to you frequently. So maybe you saw it. Rich Schefren's bathroom clubhouse room. Yeah, exactly. I will probably do a clubhouse this weekend with Jay Abraham. So if I know in advance, I'll let you know. And Mark Walker in London. So good to see you, Mark. Yeah, I guess I didn't wait for the unboxing. I already opened it up thinking somehow in my strange mind that I might be able to get it all up and running that fast, but not really. Hey, John Rubio, good to see you, my friend. And it don't mean a thing if you can't connect each thing. That's true. Like it's right now, it's just a big paperweight on my desk. Hi, Rich, watching in Auburn, New York, near Syracuse. Very cool. My daughter will be heading back there shortly. Thanks very much for promoting Jay's Hot Seat event. It was excellent. Great. I'm glad to hear it was excellent. I think we're going to probably do it again. I'm going to get Jay to run it again. This way more people can know about it. Chris Pateo from Bonita, California. Good to see you, Chris. What should I be noticing in the third step implementation of what we notice, or is it something else? I think you got it, Kayvon. If you didn't, ask me again later. Need to watch some of the replays. Yeah, they're the easiest place to find them probably is on, well, to check YouTube first because it's just easier to find on YouTube and you can watch them faster. And I'm trying to do a better job, and I have been recently, of replaying these as live streams right after on YouTube, and then also participating in the comments there. And at some point, like once I get the assistant, I'll actually stream to both places at the same time, and then you'll be able to go back to either. And then I'll also add LinkedIn Live, but all this for when my assistant comes. And I have people I got to get back to on that. Jeez. Cool. You're welcome, Matt, for that webinar tip. Can you take the better elements of mass movement to create our own business mini movements? That's the point. I think so. Great intro. Thanks, John. Oh, you especially the AI thing. Rich, are you familiar with ClickMagick tracking link? And do you recommend a custom domain for tracking visitors or conversions? Ask me that question later, Giancarlo, and I'd be glad to answer it, but it's going to be up to you to ask me that question. I'm going to apply that webinar tip in my other content. Really great stuff. Great to hear. Rotators. I don't know what rotators means. Don't even know what that was in reference to. Let me know, Cameron. Agreed testing makes a huge difference. Doesn't A/B testing need much less data, though, even if you have a clever test system that sends more data to early winners to get the result? So A/B might work better if you have less traffic than Agora. Yeah, let me just answer that since it is related to what I talked about. Yes, but the issue I have with an A/B test is that then you got to have another A/B test right behind it, and another one right behind it, and another one right behind it. Yeah, if you're getting like 10 visitors a day or 50 visitors a day, then you're probably would be better off on an A/B test. However, at the end of the day, it's not really as important of how many visitors as it is how many actions. So you can get results a lot faster, from like an opt-in page than you're going to get from like an order page or sales, a sales letter that ends in an order page. So it's basically based on number of actions. But my point is that when you're multivariant, it's a set it and forget it kind of thing. And whereas A/B testing is a continual grind. I'm a big fan of A/B testing. When I had my small business, we always did it, but it was a pain in the ass. Mark Fitzpatrick, hey, right back to you. I'm glad you like both tangents, Maboso. I'm going to try and keep my tangents like that. Isabella, thank you. You're my hero too. And hello from India. Well, good to see you, Devashish. Is that right? Devashish? I hope so. And Veronica from Boston and Renan from Brazil. Hello to you both. And Mark Fitzpatrick is just jumping in between to figure out a jump rope time. You have some true believers. That's cool. I appreciate it. Hey, Damon in Auckland. Good to see you, my friend. And hey, Rich, it's difficulty to something split test sometimes. Will tracking software do something similar? Have to look at Google Optimizer. Is it more like using Google AI? Good info to keep us focused. I guess you meant it's difficult to manage split test sometimes. Will tracking software... Well, Google Optimizer, you shouldn't have any problems with it. And if it is, I'll know a lot more about Google Optimizer in like a week or so, because now I'm going to master that, but or 2, let's say. I'm not going to probably master it by next week. But I would imagine that it's a pretty good product. Whatever you sell, Maboso and I will buy it. Well, that is a compliment. Yeah, well, it will be sometime this weekend, Veronica, when Jay Abram and I will be on. Eric's pick with you was great. You look younger. What's your secret? No tropics. But I am growing my hair back. I am literally growing my hair back. I am shocked that it's actually growing. I'm going to wait a little bit longer, and then I'll show you guys a before and after. But it's growing right here. I've got little hairs growing in here. And it was back here, and it's come back here. So that's the only thing that I've really been focused on. But, yeah. Jay's event was great. Thank you. Glad to hear. Mac Mini tip, Rich. You can set it up pretty quickly if you basically make a clone of your laptop, back up your MacBook Pro to Time Machine, then plug in the Time Machine to Mac Mini and run Migration Assistant. Oh, that's interesting. Jason, I'd be curious, though, because this is a 2 gig hard drive on my MacBook Pro, and I only have a 256 gig hard drive on the Mac Mini because I'm only going to be using it for the live streaming. And so, yeah, let me know what your thoughts are there. I was planning on not having any other software on there except to stream, so that it just is really clean and simple. And greetings to you, Brandon. Well, I miss being in Baltimore sometimes, but not all the time. I really enjoy being in Florida these days. I got to tell you, especially with the lockdowns and stuff. So anyway, let's, I guess, dive in, and we'll kind of recap some of the stuff first. I think that's probably a good idea. And then we'll dive in more further. So let's see here. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to do it. I can zoom in a little bit. So let's do that. Might as well, right? And then I can make this full screen. All right. And so I'm going to put this, I'll put this in the Facebook group as a PDF once we're done tonight. And so you'll have access to it there. And let me see if I can just add my little thing here. Let's see. There we go. All right. I'm not sure where to place myself. I guess we'll figure that out as I start scrolling. I'll put it over here for now. And all right. So, and I just need to move this a little bit closer here. Cool. All right. So, there we go. Okay, so Eisenhower recommended it. Mass movements, why they start, how they grow, and how they end. And mass movements grow out of frustration and boredom. Frustration and boredom is something that most human beings can't live long with without it stirring up something. A desire to take action, a desire to change that frustration and boredom. It's why solitary confinement can be seen as cruel and unusual punishment, right? And I love this quote. Now, I made things green that to me are more like quotes than they are like just something I'm highlighting, but quotes that have something in it. So a man is likely to mind his own business when it's worth minding. When it's not, he takes his mind off his own meaningless affairs by minding other people's business. And that should be pretty clear, right? If we don't like what we see or feel when we look inside, then we immediately do that less. And we look to spend our time, occupy our time by looking at others. You know, I once read this, and I have no idea if it's true, but it sounded true, and it was interesting. And I bet you we have all had this experience. We've all had the experience of like trying to do something out of convenience, like carrying an extra dish that we probably shouldn't, or extra glass, you know, or something that we should have made 2 trips, right? And I was reading once an explanation as to why we do that. Because, you know, and you might think the obvious answer, like, what we're trying to say is save ourselves a trip. And you might be totally right there, right? But let's assume for a second that generally we do a lot of things that we have a conscious reason why, but it's not necessarily the real reason that it occurred. And I read that oftentimes people who do not face enough, like do not feel like they're facing any challenges, will create these mini challenges that they can feel good about achievement, right? Just in these micro ways by being able to, if you ever wondered when you dropped it, why was I so stupid trying to do all that at once? It might be because of this, that you were seeking for like a short burst of achievement, the feeling of it. And it's one of those things that's what that does, right? So anyway, I share that because it's kind of the same thing here. If you're not getting if you're not getting enough of the achievement juice into your body, right, because you're not achieving anything, then you might set up these little obstacles or lose your keys and then find them and stuff like that to have achieved stuff, right? If you look at your own life and there's really not much to ponder or consider that is pleasant, then you will take your eye off that and you'll face outward. The movement that people join doesn't matter. And what we mean by that, so what this is, let me just take a step back for a second. Because it was shorter, and I thought I had already started with this, what we're reviewing here is someone who reads books like me. They highlight a lot. This is their summary that we're looking at on top. And then as we scroll down, we'll just get to the raw highlights that this person took. And so I went through this person's notes like I would my own, and I thought that would be fun because I like the way this person thinks. And later on, at some point, I'm going to compare it to mine and see what I highlighted that he didn't. But and when I share it, it'll have a link to where I found it because that would only be fair to this person, right? So anyway, so that's why it says summary on top. So the movement they're joining doesn't matter. And we talked about that last time, that the movement doesn't matter that much, because even though you would think it matters a lot, but you recognize that it doesn't matter that much because people are not so much joining a movement, although there have been a few of those. Most in the world history have not been. They're joining the movement to get away from themselves and the life that they've created. Okay. And that's why the second part of this says need crowd to dissolve into to relieve frustration or boredom. Okay. So it happens in wealthier countries that have higher income and more leisure. Also, many people wouldn't expect that. Reason being is that if you're so busy that you can't consider your discontent, then you're often not going to be discontent, right? We talked about this when we talked about how important attention was, and that, it boggles most people's minds, mine included, that like if I were to lose my legs or lose a leg today or win the lottery today, that 3 years into the future, I would be no happier or sadder no matter what, neither one of those occurred. And the reason that we can't get our head around that is that we think that we'd be paying attention to that thing. But like, obviously, the first day that you lose a leg, it's hard not to pay attention to just that. You have one leg less than you had before. But over time, as you get more used to it, as it becomes your daily experience, it gets less of your attention until it gets no attention of yours. And when it gets no attention of yours, guess what? You're right back at the same level of happiness that you were before. And it's the same with the lottery. If you won the lottery today, tomorrow you'd wake up, you'd be richer, you'd be everything that you'd be looking at. Part of your attention would be flavored by the fact that you have this extra money. But over time, you will not pay attention to that anymore. It becomes your normal, natural circumstance, and therefore you're no longer happier, right? You have to have extra attention bandwidth in order to be disappointed. And in poor countries, there's not a lot of attention surplus, right? You got to survive. You got to stay alive. That means getting food. That means whatever. And so there's a lot less discontent because you don't even have time, and that is your experience, and you've experienced it for so long, it doesn't capture any of your attention. I hope that makes sense. All right. Freedom aggravates at least as much as it alleviates frustration. Freedom of choice places the whole blame of failure on the shoulders of individuals. When we live in a free country, or when you live in a free country, it then becomes something of an issue if you're not where you want to be in life. If you're not where you want to be in life and you're in a country where you have freedom of choice, right, then all blame, all failure, all of your current situation can be put on your shoulders. That's not a place that a lot of people like to spend a lot of time on. Especially if they feel like it's not changeable. And so the natural inclination is to not necessarily identify with that belief, even though deep down you might believe it, but to look for scapegoats, to look for reasons, right, of why you did not get the outcome in any part of your life that you desire, that you've gone after. Okay? So one of the things that, right, when I do the marketing that I do is I am trying to get the blame off the shoulders of the individual. Now, the weakest way to do that is in a sales letter where you say it's not your fault. It might be better than not saying it, but it certainly isn't going to let them off the hook completely because you said it in a sales letter. What you ideally want to do is to have content that explains the problem in a way that when they understand the problem differently than they had before, right? Because you've now described the problem in some way, shape, or form differently than what they perceive the problem up until that piece of content. They should come to the conclusion, oh my God, this is why whatever, right? So I want you to imagine here for a second, like, because this is what I've tried to convey, I don't know, countless times in these live streams, like when I talk about, like, when I read the book Driven to Distraction, and it always kind of like, I don't know how I should respond when people are asking me about the book, because it has nothing to do with the book in ADD. It's my story, and so it does from that standpoint. But what's much more important is recognizing that I was a person who had struggled with many different things, didn't solve any of those things, had almost given up on those things. And then in that book, I came to the conclusion, right, based on the fact that ADD can cause a lot of these things, that was the reason I couldn't solve those things. They didn't say it was the reason that I couldn't solve these things. They didn't even say I had these things. They were saying these kinds of problems are often caused by ADD because of X, Y, and Z, right? And in that moment, right, where the only option I had before was that I am just flawed. I can't, right? The blame was on my shoulders. And these were things that I had tried numerous times and could not solve. So in that moment, all that blame, all that failure was gone from the standpoint that I no longer blamed myself. And because of that, and because it wasn't me, right? Because it was something that it was me, but because it wasn't just, I'm incapable. There was a reason, right? That then gave me new hope that all of a sudden in areas where they had been shut down, I no longer was really exploring options to improve in those areas. All of a sudden now, the thought of those areas and improving in those areas finally resurfaced as new hope, as something that all of a sudden was possible that was not possible 40 pages earlier, because before those, I had read those pages, I was ascribing and tying those negative results to just that's who I am. Not I have this issue that causes these things, and this issue is something that can be tackled. So that's kind of, I'm trying to tie these together for you, what I'm reading here and how it's influenced me. Now, is this the only thing that I read that led me to doing that? No, and neither was the ADD book. But all of these things come together to reaffirm my own experiences and what I've seen work. And then for me to kind of figure out more an operating way of more of operating principles to use to be able to do what it is I do, right? And currently, one of my new friends is Aaron Fletcher, and we're talking a lot, and he's helping me turn these into processes, hopefully. Well, he's illuminating the way. It's going to be up to me for me to do it. But anyway, so all the advantages by the West are ineffectual substitutes for sheltering and soothing anonymity of a communal existence. Even when the westernized native attains personal success, becomes rich, or masters a respected profession, he is not happy. He feels naked and orphaned. And everyone can have different opinions about this, but I believe this truth. I believe it, and I believe it's true. That we were designed to be much more social than we are, certainly during the lockdown, but even prior to the lockdown, that more and more people are isolated and alone, and it's a very bad thing for our mental health. And are sharing this on a live stream, on the Italian live stream. That's something that was taught to me early on when I was going through my midlife crisis and doing a lot of personal transformation work, was that all trauma is caused in relationship with other people. And the only way to get rid of trauma is in relationship with other people. It does not happen in solitude. And even this, right? This to me is a very different experience than me sitting here just talking to a camera, even though I kind of am doing that, right? Because it feels differently for me. It is different when I feel like I'm making a connection, when I feel that what I'm talking about, you're listening to, you're hearing, you are processing, and then make a comment or emote or share, right? And that it makes the experience different, and I would imagine for many of you it's the same. So anyway, tangent, let's go back. Leaders of mass movements are often creative people who are unable to create, because creative people who are unable to create tend to, like, it's like a pressure building, right? And eventually it can turn, but we'll get to that. Poverty, when coupled with creativeness, is usually free of frustration. This is true of the poor artisan skilled in his trade and the poor writer, artist, and scientist in the full possession of creative power. Nothing so bolsters our self-confidence and reconciles us with ourselves as the continuous ability to create, to see things grow and develop under our hand day in and day out. All right, this is important. Now, from the standpoint of what the book is about and marketing, I'd say it's less important. But I do believe that this is one of the ingredients to mental health. To have something that you care about, right, that allows you to express your creative powers, whatever that is, to spend some time in your strength every day. And the missing of that, which far too many people miss, is a problem and one of the causes of mental health problems. And so as you read that, as I read that to you, do you have a creative outlet? Do you have something, whether that's, for me, it could be writing or learning or, creating a presentation. A lot of times when I create slide presentations, I spend a ridiculous amount of time on the images, and I do that. It's so not worth the time, but I do it because I enjoy it. I love playing around and finding just the right image for the message I'm trying to convey and things like that. But it's really more a way of me expressing some artistic side that I don't really have. And so I find that I'm always happier when I'm doing it. I'm in a good mood. And I also, when I make time every day to be creative, to think through a problem, think through either a new application of something or try something, I tend to find myself more positively bent. And I remember when we were running lots of split tests, even just that micro excitement of wondering each day what the results were going to be. Kind of cool stuff. Okay. So movements project the anger on the other rather than self. It is it's the exact opposite of taking 100% responsibility, right? And it's where so much, right? It's one of the reasons why hypocrisy often goes hand in hand with most movements, right? I mean, I find it personally disgusting for any Hollywood celebrity to lecture me about the environment if they fly private. Because flying private one flight across the country is going to create a bigger carbon footprint and create whatever issues people have with the environment. It's going to cause more damage than I could do in a car in 2 years. So don't fly somewhere to then lecture me when you flew private. That's the hypocrisy is unreal. And why that occurs is that if there's an anger, we don't project it on ourselves, we project it on others. So it's so convenient to join a movement, right? Okay, so anyway, all I say is by way of discourse and nothing by way of advice. I should not speak so boldly if it were my due to be believed, right? And so that is just, I think, an amazing line from Eric Hoffer, because when he wrote this, he was I think a dock worker, a philosopher who worked on the dock, and he wrote some very impactful books that are considered classics. So he was certainly much more than just a dock worker, but he felt free to share his true thoughts because he doesn't believe that many people are going to believe him, which I love that line. Okay, so when they perceive a lack of opportunity, people cannot live without hope, and opportunity is partly what feeds hope. So no opportunity, no hope, that becomes problematic in most people's lives. Part of a midlife crisis, at least for me, was that loss of hope, that as long as I was pursuing goals, there was hope, right? The next goal, I'm going to achieve this. I'm going to feel that, right? When I realized that I'd achieved all the goals I wanted to pursue and I was still unhappy, like there was no hope in that moment of being happy, like for, not in a given moment, but like long term. And so that then created the beginning of the spiral, right? Because like in that moment, there was no hope. Is this resonating? Like what is a little weird for me is that like with the way we're doing it now, not seeing any comments come in. I mean, I saw Dr. Vogelman write something, but seeing so few comments come in has me wonder if like the number I see on the screen of how many people are watching is true, and if I'm just talking to myself. Oh, I saw a thumbs up, so thank you for that thumbs up. But yeah, even if it's just a note to yourself, put it in the comments because it's just weird for me to not have any interaction. I feel like I'm reading my notes out loud in an empty room. All right. Thanks, guys. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I think did I go down too far? Yeah, I did. Okay. Tendency to locate so this was also an interesting point in the book. I'm curious though, just let me know, like, are you getting value from this? And if like, yes, no. And yeah, that's it. That's all I need to know. So let me know if you're getting value out of this. And I'm going to keep going. So tendency to locate the shaping forces of our existence outside ourselves, success and failure related in our minds to states of things around us. And this is interesting to me because that's not my experience. Certainly I can understand if you're in a bad situation, how you would ascribe to that. And maybe there are certain situations where that happens and certain situations where that does not happen. Cool. All right. So people are enjoying it. I appreciate that. Because like, I had this very real experience at Agora where like I was on the second floor in this like group of workers, right, in this pit. And to me, the energy felt low there, and not noticeably low. Like in hindsight now, it looked low. It felt low. And I found my energy level getting lower, and I thought I was depressed. And I guess in those times I was, but I thought there was something wrong. Like, maybe I got to take something different or do something different because I'm just not feeling all that. And then I moved to the third floor to work with Pete and Evaldo and Katie and Paradigm and Chris Carroll. And the energy was so much faster up there. And I found that all of a sudden I felt better. And it boggled my mind. I was like, oh my God, I never knew that just sitting around a group of people, like their activity level would have such an impact on my psychology, but it did. So this is the opposite of that. This is saying that most people automatically ascribe their issues, maybe because it was my own mental state. I didn't ascribe it to like as opposed to something else. But anyway, that was my experience. But we tend to, and what the book is underscoring here is that it doesn't matter whether it's a failure or a success, we will attribute to outside forces. And I certainly attribute a lot of my success to like right time, right place, right message, right? And certainly bad things that have happened to me, I can see that I've ascribed them maybe too externally and not enough personal responsibility. So I guess, yeah, that in my example, that was more just when it's a mental state. But yeah. All right, so let's keep going. It's understandable those who fail should incline to blame the world for their failures. The remarkable thing is the successful do. Okay, we're going. Okay, talking about here at the top, they know how to kindle and fan extravagant hope. And that really is if you had to boil down marketing like to one word, it would be hope, I think. Because I had never really thought about it this way. But, the hope that tomorrow's better than today, or at least as good as today. The hope that if like I can finally get that outcome that your product service provides. That's, what goes hand in hand with promise is hope. And getting clearer about what the real hopes and dreams of your prospects are is obviously incredibly important. And then recognizing that it is that hope that people must have that can then be used to nudge people in different directions, right? And I shared last time how in all of my reports and all my webinars, what I am doing at the same time that I am introducing that deeper reason, right? Why, so now removing the blame. At the same time, once the blame is off their shoulders and they know that there's a way to get to that deeper cause, there is tremendous hope. But there's also a removal of hope of that being solved ever in the way it's currently being done, which is why I always stress, right? One of the things that I take as true, regardless of whether it is or not, it's just I need to in order to market and think the way I do, is that every market is just made up of a group of people that share conflict. That's what a market is. And most people didn't join the group yesterday. So they've had that conflict for some period of time, which means they've tried certain things. And a conflict is a goal unattained or a problem unresolved. So the first thing that I got to do is I got to remove hope that the way that they're trying to attempt it is ever going to work. And the easiest way to remove hope is also to remove blame off of their shoulders. Right? In the internet, in the webinar I did for BGS, I tell my story, right? The story of how I was successful in the fashion and music business. I was successful in the hypnosis business. Then I got online and I struggled, and I tell the path of my spiraling down, doing things that I think probably many people on the webinar are doing as well that I used to do. And then telling them about the success of what happened after I figured out what I figured out. And so, okay, I start, it's not the rags to riches story, right? It's actually success, lose it, success, right? Which is actually, I like those kind of stories quite a bit too, because it's the second success that always means a lot more. For most entrepreneurs, it's the second success that lets you know that you can do it consistently, not all the time, but if you had to do it all over again, you could. For people who've only had one that never lost it and got it back, you can't be as confident. But anyway, but why am I telling that story on the webinar? Well, I'm telling that story because, okay, here's someone who's successful online today, right? Potentially very successful. And he was successful in many businesses offline. And then he got online and he was unsuccessful and he was doing the same things that I'm doing. And now he is successful. All right. So the moral, then I connect the dots for people and I'm like, look, I'm the same person. I'm the same person that had the successful clothing business. I'm the same person that had the successful music business. I'm the same person that had the successful hypnosis business. I'm the same person that struggled and failed online the first 2 years. And I'm the same person that is really successful online today. So what changed? Why did I not succeed those first 2 years in internet marketing? And if I didn't change, then it had to be what I was doing. And it is what I was doing. It was the strategy I was following. It was never me, even though there were many times where I thought it was completely me, where I was looking in the mirror or sitting at my desk thinking what the hell is wrong with me? I know I'm smarter than a lot of these other people that are doing much, much better than me online. What is wrong with me? And so that I want people to hear that during the webinar and be like, holy crap, I'm following the wrong strategy. Because if they come to that conclusion, right, all the blame lifts off their shoulders. And what also happens? That there's a different strategy out there that will get them a different result, which therefore is newfound hope. Okay? So this is anything that says starts with note is actually something that the person whose webpage I clipped this from Evernote, that's his notation, right? Oh, well, actually, let's go over here because some of these are important. All right, so before that, let's just move this here. You can see it. So for men to plunge headlong into, vast change, they need to be intensely discontent, right? Extremely dissatisfied, but not destitute, not tapped out poor, right? The feeling that by the possession of some doctrine, infallible leader, or some new technique, they have access to a source of irresistible power. It doesn't have to, like in our world, it doesn't have to be irresistible power. But like, think about the story I just shared about the strategy. Like, right? They're going to get possession of the strategy that turns someone who is struggling just like they are currently online to someone successful, that gives them new power, new hope, a new place to point, right? Extravagant conception of the prospects and potentialities of the future, right? So big hope, and ignorant of the difficulties involved. And generally, whenever we get hopeful about something, we are somewhat ignorant of the challenges that will certainly face us, because that is life, right? Murphy's Law. So the fundamental appeal of a mass movement versus the appeal of any other organization, a practical organization, is that practical organizations offer the people within it, right, the opportunity for improvement, the opportunity for self-advancement, ultimately the appeal to serve self-interest. Right? We work to get ahead, to make a living, to make a difference in other people's lives that make us feel good about ourselves, right? So ultimately, right, it's self-interest that drives that behavior. A mass movement is very different from that. A mass movement, the person is trying to get rid of their unwanted self, right? It satisfies the passion for self-renunciation. So note, at the root of mass movements is always self-loathing in some form. Faith in a holy cause is to a considerable extent a substitute for the lost faith in ourselves. And that is an extremely powerful sentence. Faith in a holy cause is to a considerable extent a substitute for lost faith in ourselves. I'm not only talking about holy causes here, right? I am not, part of that story arc that I just told you, right? The success, failure, success is something else that I've referred to, I think even on a very recent previous live stream, and have definitely mentioned it numerous times. The concept that I learned, I think it was from Michael Cage, an intersection of journeys, right? My journey's intersecting with their journey, which automatically implies that if my journey crisscrosses their journey, it means I was once where they are, right? And they want to get to where I am now. So the part of the subtext of that is all you have to do is hitch your wagon to me and I'll take you there. I'm reaching out my hand. I am offering to pull you up, will you take it? And that then gives people extra faith. It's not, I'm not creating a mass movement. I don't have to get someone to have total faith and lose all faith in everything else. I need them to lose hope in the way that they were trying to achieve it and find newfound hope. But I want them to have, obviously, greater faith in their ability to get the outcome with me than without me, right? We talked about this previously. We want to take them from possible to probable. And that we can't rely on the faith that the prospect alone has in themselves if we're selling any kind of change. We need to add additional faith that we bring to the equation, right? To make people believe that they can do it with our help, what they once could not do. All right, so already shared the other one, so okay. Okay. Despair brought by unemployment comes not only from the threat of destitution, but from the sudden view of the vast nothingness ahead, right? That loss of hope and that, not just being poor, but what are you going to occupy your life with? The unemployed are more likely to follow the peddlers of hope than the handers out of relief. That's really deep. And I don't even, I'd have to think about that a lot to have a good kind of, a good way to explain and also to fully appreciate that statement. Because on the surface, I can't give you a reason why the unemployed are more likely to follow the peddlers of hope than the handers out of relief. The only thing that comes to me, right, is that relief is not enough. Because with relief, still, there's nothingness ahead. What needs to be solved are both things. So, okay, when someone's ready for a mass movement, they're ready for any mass movement. They're interchangeable. Let's see here. I just love this one. This highlight. This green highlight. The game of history is usually played by the best and the worst over the heads of the majority in the middle. Sounds like a Chinese fortune cookie. Can exert a marked influence on courts wholly without reverence towards the present, right? There's a diminishment of the present, right? And there needs to be in order for someone to join a mass movement. And there has to be a belief that the future is going to be better than the present. And everyone needs that, right? But not to the total diminishment of the present. But if you're really struggling, if you're in pain, then the present becomes a lot less important. Right? We talked about the new poor because they live with the memory of better things. We talked about how, in fact, as problems start to get easier, that's when people are more likely to join movements. Right? We talked about here when people toil from sunrise to sunset for a bare living, they nurse no grievance and dream no dream. All right. I want to just go a little bit deeper here. Okay. Note the feeling of actually being free, right? So this is a note from the gentleman who read, who highlighted these notes. The feeling of actually being free is terror for those who don't know how to handle it. I believe that to be true. Those who see their lives as spoiled and wasted crave equality and fraternity more than they do freedom. If they clamor for freedom, it is but freedom to establish equality and uniformity. When freedom is real, equality is the passion of the masses. Okay? So understand that. When people are free, then what people will fight for, if they're not satisfied with their life, is equality for the masses. When equality is real, freedom is the passion of only a small minority. Equality without freedom creates a much more stable social pattern than freedom without equality. And feel free to comment on anything I'm sharing here. If you disagree with it, you agree with it, but I hope, and this is just one person's perspective, but I find that there's a lot of deep truths in here. All right. I read that to you. It talks about the power of teams and collective. Okay, this is interesting. Unlimited opportunities can be as potent a cause of frustration as a paucity or lack of opportunity. When opportunities are apparently unlimited, there is an inevitable deprecation of the present. The attitude is, all that I'm doing or possibly can do is chicken feed compared with what is left undone. The least and most successful of a minority bent on assimilation, like, one culture to another culture, should be most responsive to the appeal of mass movements, reliable indicator of society's ripeness for a mass movement than the prevalence of unrelieved boredom. Right? So let me read the full sentence, not just what I highlighted. There is perhaps no more reliable indicator of a society's ripeness for mass movement than the prevalence of unrelieved boredom. I think that is one of the reasons why further lockdowns would be a huge mistake, because there's a lot of people who now don't even have the news or anything else to follow. And if you lock those people down, that's going to be problematic. All right. The consciousness of barren, meaningless existence is the main fountainhead of boredom. The differentiated individual is free of boredom only when he is engaged either in the creative work or some absorbing occupation, or when he is wholly engrossed in the struggle for existence. Yeah, you're not bored when you're fighting for your life. You're not bored when you have something that you wish you could do all the time. You're not bored when, you have people in front of you that you're looking forward to interacting with, or work that needs to get done. Pleasure chasing and dissipation are ineffective palliatives. And I can tell you, as someone who has tried to retire numerous times, how true that is. Boredom does not get relieved by just having fun and feeling good. That gets tiring after a while. Okay. The vigor of a mass movement stems from the propensity of its followers for united action and self-sacrifice. When we ascribe the success of a movement to its faith, doctrine, propaganda, leadership, ruthlessness, and so on, we are but referring to the instruments of unification and to means used to inculcate a readiness for self-sacrifice. It is perhaps impossible to understand the nature of mass movements unless it is recognized that their chief preoccupation is to foster, perfect, and perpetuate a facility for united action and self-sacrifice. It is poignantly frustrated the propensities of united action, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, got it. What ails the frustrated? It is the consciousness of an irredeemably blemished self. The chief desire is to escape that self, and it is this desire which manifests itself in a propensity for united action and self-sacrifice. Right? What ails the frustrated? It is the consciousness of an irredeemably blemished self. The chief desire is to escape that self, and it is this desire which manifests itself in a propensity for united action and self-sacrifice. And so, as someone who believes that to be true, when I look at either side of the political world, right? Either extreme, on either side, that's all I see. The people that get wrapped up in protests, that get wrapped up into these kinds of, like, into violence, whether it's the right or the left, right, has less to do with those things than it does the people in it dissatisfied with their life and looking for an escape. And you don't have to agree with me. You don't even have to believe it. You could totally disagree with it. But that's what I see. I see people who are so unhappy with where they are and who they are. Not consciously. They don't, it's like what Joe Rogan said is like whenever he sees an asshole, he sees like a 3-year-old after he had kids. He sees like a 3-year-old that didn't get hugged enough. I see people that are in the disfortunate place of disliking who they are, how they wound up being, and think that this is the solution, which it never is. And I feel compassion for them. I don't necessarily feel any sympathy, but I feel a lot of compassion for them because I know that must be a difficult place to be, and it's a difficult place to get out of. But that is, from a marketing standpoint, what I hope you realize is that everyone, to some degree, has a self-esteem issue. We don't walk around with a self-esteem issue like on our sleeve, but everyone, and I really truly believe everyone, because they say that the most cocky and the most arrogant people, like that's an ego defense for truly lower self-esteem. That a narcissist has truly low self-esteem. So, look, I'm sure there are some people that are healthy and psychologically well-adjusted. Most people are not. And recognizing that so many of the purchases that we buy for reasons other than we think. And many of those have to do with our self-esteem. There is no doubt in my mind that part of the reason why everything I own computer-wise is Apple I tie that to my self-esteem. I think I'm cooler. I think whatever. I have no idea, but there's deeper preferences there. And when you are helping someone in a service or in an area where there's a significant change, then you have to recognize that you might need to boost their self-esteem so that they believe that something that is possible for others is also possible for them, that it is actually probable for them. So that's one way esteem gets met, right? If you're selling a car, then the brand of the car is the esteem. It's not, you personally or even the brand personally. It's the brand logo and what that says about the person. So just as a marketer, recognize that if your market is like the rest of the world, there are many people in your market who struggle with their sense of self and their self-esteem. And that how that integrates with the outcome of purchase is what you got to figure out, because every business is different on how it might meet the esteem need, or if that esteem need, it needs to be met before the purchase so that the person believes in the outcome. So I used to teach this exercise, right? Where it's like, okay, what do your prospects believe now? What is the ultimate outcome of what you sell, right? And where's the ideal buying moment where we move, where the prospect is now to where this becomes the easiest to be sold, right? The ideal buying moment. And understanding is where the esteem needs to be on the equation before the purchase, right? Like they need to believe this so they believe they can get that, or it's just a question of a purchase. So now it's like the esteem is going to come from the purchase, right? Then you will have now a new lens, right, to look at your marketing and understand where does esteem fit into it, because in general it does. Okay. All right, let's see here. I wanted to make sure I hit like two other ones, so I just want to see if I can just find a few highlights, and then we'll get to questions. Okay, so when there's no hope, people either run or allow themselves to be killed without a fight. They will hang on to life as in a daze. How else explain the fact that millions of Europeans allowed themselves to be led into annihilation camps and gas chambers, knowing beyond doubt that they were being led to death? It was not the least of Hitler's formidable powers that he knew how to drain his opponents, at least in continental Europe, of all hope. His fanatical conviction that he was building a new order that would last 1,000 years communicated itself both to followers and to antagonists. To the former, it gave the feeling that in fighting for the Third Reich, they were in a league with eternity, while the latter felt that to struggle against Hitler's new order was to defy inexorable fate. The fanatical Japanese in Brazil refused to believe for years the evidence of Japan's defeat. The fanatical communist refuses to believe any unfavorable report or evidence about Russia, nor will he be disillusioned by seeing with his own eyes the cruel misery inside the Soviet promised land. And this is all about, we only see what we believe, we only see and what we want to see. And so, recognizing that, that's one of the reasons why I like to lead people to a realization before explanation. I want them to have the epiphany, because to get someone to believe something that they don't believe is going to be met with resistance. But to get someone to come to a new conclusion is very different. I love this quote. We can be absolutely certain only about things we do not understand, right? We can be absolutely certain only about things we don't understand. Because if you're certain, you obviously don't understand, right? I just think I like that line. All right, I wanted to show you, okay, that's not worth it. Okay, so this is interesting. This is what the leader needs and who leads the movement. What are the talents requisite for such a performance? Exceptional intelligence, noble character, and originality seem neither indispensable nor perhaps desirable. The main requirements seem to be audacity and joy in defiance, an iron will, a fanatical conviction that he is in possession of the one and only truth, faith in his destiny and luck, a capacity for passionate hatred, contempt for the present, a cunning estimate of human nature, a delight in symbols, unbounded brazenness, which finds its expression in a disregard of consistency and fairness, a recognition that the innermost craving of a following is for communion, and that there can never be too much of it, a capacity for winning and holding the utmost loyalty of a group of able lieutenants. This last faculty, right, holding the utmost loyalty of a group of lieutenants, this last faculty is one of the most essential and elusive. The uncanny powers of a leader manifest themselves not so much in the hold he has on the masses, as is his ability to dominate and almost bewitch a small group of able men. These men must be fearless, proud, intelligent, and capable of organizing and running large-scale undertakings, and yet they must submit wholly to the will of the leader, draw their inspiration and driving force from him, and glory in this submission. The most decisive for the effectiveness of a mass movement leader seems to be audacity, fanatical faith in a holy cause, and awareness of the importance of close-knit collectivity, and above all, the ability to evoke fervent devotion in a group of able lieutenants. The quality of ideas seems to play a minor role in mass movement leadership. What counts is the arrogant gesture, the complete disregard of the opinion of others, and the single-handed defiance of the world. I did want to find one other one. Let's see here. That was very much related. Okay. Self-contempt, however vague, sharpens our eyes for the imperfection of others. We usually strive to reveal in others the blemishes we hide in ourselves. And that's what projection is, right? All right. There's so much good stuff in here. I do want to get to your questions. So we will put this back on hold for now. So my hope is that this isn't just a sociology class, right? That, like, as I'm trying to tie things to marketing, that you're seeing some of those connections. That, you know, yeah, certainly we're not trying to enroll people in some mass movement or a cult. So the bar is not that high. But what works at that level certainly works at a lower level. And people need hope. We can remove hope from that our competitors are going to get them the solution. We can remove hope of different ways of getting an outcome. We can remove hope in many different ways. And we can add new hope, right? That's one. We also need to address, like, if they've been responsible, how do we get them off the hook? How do we inject some self-esteem in them? And, is the purchase to get esteem? And do they need greater esteem to even believe that they're capable of doing that and achieving that? These are the kinds of things that I see very much related to what we just covered, and I hope you do too. And my hope is that something that we were covering tonight, like, clicked for you and helped you see marketing maybe just a little bit differently. So I'll leave it at that. I can go on and on and on, but, like, let me go here now and look at some of the comments or questions, and we'll see where we go. All right. Okay. I hope that's the reason, Ryan, that it might be mind-blowing and everyone is trying to digest it. Veronica is trying to process it. Bill is taking it all in. All right, cool. Very deep stuff. I need to extra concentrate. Cool. Yeah, great insight. Great. Getting value. Cool. All right. We'll need to go through it again later. I'm getting value. I was going to do notes myself, but I did not want to distract. Cool. And I'm going to put the notes in. It'll be there by morning. I'll put them in tonight, but I'm not going to do it as soon as I get done. COVID has his brain slower. Yes, getting value. I've been wanting to read this book for some time. As you speak, I'm thinking about how to apply these principles to business and marketing. Christopher Vogelman, hope you're getting over COVID. Thanks, Veronica. Our environment is extremely powerful, not only people, even unanimated things. Trying to get work done in a messy room versus working in a pristine environment, it's a day and night difference. Totally agree. I actually hired a organizer to come to my office on Saturday. I am super excited about that because I totally agree. And my office, like, I just have it's got so much crap and it's so unorganized. So looking forward to that. All right. Okay, Rich, are you familiar with ClickMagick Tracking Link? And do you recommend a custom domain for tracking visitors or conversions? I'm not sure what ClickMagick is, so let me just take a look at that while we're talking here. I can just type that in. I think I have an idea, but oh, well, I can actually show the screen, so let's see what it looks like. And let me get rid of this. All right, let me go here. Oh, all right. Why can't I make this smaller? There we go. And now let's just go like that. All right. Track and improve your marketing with True Tracking. Click and conversion tracking is the most technical, tedious, and least fun of running a business online, but you have to get it right. I don't believe it. It might do what they say they do, and if they do, that's phenomenal. And if they do it at that price, even better. I don't know how someone can deliver that right now. And with Apple iOS 14, I don't know how they are getting around that. And if they have an answer for that, why they're selling a solution for $77 when some of the biggest companies in the world are having would pay many times more than that daily, if not certainly weekly for a solution, makes me a little skeptical of it. It doesn't mean that it isn't a cool tool and can provide value. I don't know enough about it, but yeah, I would probably cloak it. I mean, I certainly would create some kind of shortener so that that didn't show up. But yeah, I don't know enough without having looked further, but it seems a little bit too good to be true, especially for the price. To be able to track omni-channel is not easy, and it generally requires an identity graph. And even then, it ain't easy. So I just don't know how they're doing that exactly. Okay, Mac Mini follow-up. I agree, keep it a lean machine, less issues will result. You could use iCloud Keychain or 1Password to keep all your passwords across both computers. I do use 1Password. All right. Relief. Okay. I'm just looking to see if you guys have any questions. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah, people want relief is charity and obligation to be accepted only in extremes. Oh, that's another interesting distinction, Matt. I was thinking that relief is just not the issue, but there's still not necessarily hope that anything's improved upon, but that could also be true. Faith in a holy cause is to a considerable extent a substitute for the lost faith in ourselves. Very interesting. Can this relate to when I hear someone saying, I have faith that God will provide it, or it's up to God? It feels like the person is taking himself out of the equation. Does this make sense? It certainly makes sense to me, Hugo. I'm not uber religious, and I wouldn't want to offend anyone that is. but it's certainly, when you put it in God's hands, you've kind of now taken it out of your hands, right? And whatever. Don't want to trounce on someone's deep personal beliefs. It's like product launch formula circa 1951. I think that's hilarious, Brandon. Great comment. Freedom without equality? How so? Well, when we have freedom, you're free to fail, you're free to succeed, you're free to, you're just free. So inherent in freedom is a lack of equality as far as where people end up, right? Not equality of freedom, but, not everyone's going to end up with the same of everything when people are free. From my perspective, with multiple family deaths from COVID, so-called lockdowns are an inconvenience. So-called lockdowns are an inconvenience, not a death sentence. Oh, okay. Well, Chris, did all those family deaths come from people who were ignoring the lockdowns? Because if they died during a lockdown, it's not necessarily an inconvenience. It could be a cause of death. That's the issue, right? No vitamin D, no exercise, no nothing, right? Etc. Adaptation. Where we go? Adaptation is chief characteristic of intelligence in organisms, those who fail to adapt to change. Yeah, I agree with that. Don't know where that came out of, though. Oh, I got to show, this is interesting, though. Guys, okay. So I got to go back to this because this will spook you. Not spook you, but look at that the very last quote there. And I'll read it out loud. It is probably better for a country that when its government begins to show signs of chronic incompetence, it should be overthrown by a mighty mass upheaval, even though such overthrow involves a considerable waste of life and wealth, then that it should be allowed to fall and crumble of itself. A genuine popular upheaval is often an invigorating, renovating, and integrating process. Where governments are allowed to die a lingering death, the result is often stagnation and decay, perhaps irredeemable decay. That's crazy to me. When I read that, I was like, wow. When I highlighted that as the last paragraph of a book, it certainly wasn't when I was thinking that could happen. All right. Rich, have you heard of the CFO scoreboard tools for optics and clarity for business growth developed by Keith Cunningham? I have not, but I will check it out. Alex Schefren tells me that book, The Road Less Stupid, is one of his favorite books because it reminds him of me because of how much, I taught him to write in his journal and ask questions and how important questions are and all that kind of stuff. I've also heard, and I really enjoyed the book too. I mean, to me, it was just a lot of questions. But for anyone who doesn't do that, it's extremely valuable. And I've also heard, have no idea whether this is true or not, but when Robert Kiyosaki talks about Rich Dad, he's really talking about Keith Cunningham. I have no idea whether that's true, but that's what I heard, that a lot of the concepts that Kiyosaki shares actually came from Cunningham. Hugo, have you seen it? And if you have seen it, what do you think of it, since I haven't seen it? And how am I going to remember that? I'm going to throw that back up on screen for a second. I'm going to take a screen cap. So, I messed it up. Sorry, guys. All right, let's go here. Okay, yep. Me too. Always wondered why you would walk into a gas chamber without a fight, but I don't believe that I'm above it. Probably I could see, a lot of other people weren't. Let's see. Yeah, these deep discussions, I got to make the next one pretty light, guys. Definitely, didn't want to be a downer on everyone, but these are kind of dark. Very deep discussion. One thing I notice in my industry are segments of consumers, participants following leaders who are anti-big sellout brands. Targeting these people, leaders on the edge can be successful because they are often the most vocal brand advocates. Consumer participants following leaders who are anti-big sellout brands. Oh, very interesting. Very interesting, Steve. Mia, how's it going, Mia? Good to see you. 3 uncles, all medical dollars, work in hospitals. Oh, well, that's a shame. Wow. Were they healthy? About last paragraph. The results happen, but not for the generation who makes the change. There will be a long period of chaos and instability until the dust settles. I'm thinking 30 to 40 years. I don't even want to think about it, to be honest with you. I've been introduced to Keith Cunningham as the real rich dad. Okay, so there you go. So I guess what I heard was true, or possibly. I did not know that ponerology is the study of evil. Is it worth checking it out? Can see this in action in Narcos within the leaders of the cartels. Ryan, nice to meet you, Ryan. That is a very nice picture of you. I need a picture like that. Sometimes negative topics are ultimately positive because they inspire proactive thinking. Yeah, also, time is the great changer of whether something is good or bad, right? It's like that old Sufi story where there's an old Sufi and a farmer. He's a farmer and he has a young son and 3 stallions, like it's thousands of years ago. 3 stallions come running in from like the forest and go to their farm, and everyone in the community is like, "Wow, you're so lucky! You got these 3 horses. They can now help and pull stuff, to plow and whatever else." And the old man says, "Maybe." And then, his son is trying to tame these wild horses and falls off one of the horses and breaks his arm. So now he's not going to be able to help his 80-year-old father with the farming. And everyone in the town is like to the old man, "You're so unlucky. Your son has a broken arm. You have to do all the farming. Like, you're so unlucky." And he's like, "Maybe," right? And then 2 weeks later, the king decides that they're going to war and they conscript all the townspeople to soldier up and go fight. And they're most likely all going to die. And they don't take the son because he has a broken arm. And everyone in the town is like, "Oh, you're so lucky. Your son gets to live," right? And the old man says, "Maybe." And how does this story end? Well, it all depends on when you end that story. And time often changes bad things into good things into bad things. That's why it's never too wise to get too bent out of shape about in the current moment. Anyway, guys, definitely felt a different energy at the beginning of this, and certainly felt a different energy while we were going through it. And it's heavy now. It feels heavy. So I apologize for making it so heavy. And I got to figure out a way to present some heavy stuff with, in a way that maybe is not as monotone, maybe not as deep and ominous sounding or something. Because certainly we should be able to have fun while we do this and learn, and not have to get all tight and serious. And this is a serious topic. I get it. I guess I've been exposed to it for so long, I kind of forget the underlying heaviness of it. But I really hope that, and I'd love to just know, and it's totally cool if you didn't, because the only way that I improve is with accurate feedback. Did you, is there, you could tell me, if you want to make if you're afraid of hurting my feelings, you can tell me that this was valuable, it was very interesting. But what I really want to know is, do you see any way that you might alter your marketing based on what we were talking about? And it's totally cool if not, because it's still an interesting topic, and I'm glad to share it. But I do think that it is highly valuable. I also someone, and I have to go check my messages because they sent it to me a couple days ago, but I think I shared with you guys that I was sad because with my daughter, just not wanting to spend a lot of time in Florida, whatever. And we're past that, and we talked it through. But someone sent me one of the one of the pictures from Hidden Obstacle, and in my where I have like the picture of what I believe, and in it says like to embrace the time I'm spending with Ava and Elle, because at some point as they grow up, they're going to have better things to do than spend time with their dad. And I was happy to be reminded that of it back then, and I was happy to be reminded that I did maximize a lot of it because I reminded myself very frequently back then that this would happen. So, so I really hope that you got value out of this, and I would like to share like books, maybe not necessarily deep books like this, but Todd Herman, the author of Alter Ego, who I think I'm supposed to talk to next week, he registered the domain for me, Marketer's Notes, and he thought it would be a great idea for me to actually start creating content where I just go through my book notes and make, not like maybe like this, but and summarize and make connections for people. And I'd like to do that. I'd like to spend more time doing that with you guys. But I'm not sure really what the best way to do it is. I don't know if the best way to do it is kind of what I did today, which I don't think it is. Regardless of the topic. Let me move this a little bit. Regardless of the topic, like even if this was a light topic, I don't know that just reading a bunch of my highlights and then like giving you my marketing thoughts is the best way to deliver stuff from that I've learned, that I've come across, that I've highlighted, etc. So if any of you have any ideas, I'd be really glad to hear them. And I look forward to sharing more of stuff I'm reading, because I think that makes it's one, I think it's one place where I stand out quite a bit, and two, it does both of us a benefit. If I'm sharing with you something I've read recently, it's helping me kind of get a better sense of it. And it's also kind of sharing with you guys is exposing you to stuff that you might not have come across. In addition to that, so I now have these domains, Marketer's Notes. And then I also have, which was like where I could see all this coming together at some point after I get Strategic Profits back to where I want it to be. I have Secrets of Being Rich and Secret of Being Rich, which I like just the double thing there. And it would be more about Secrets of Being Rich. Schefren, right? But still have the domain Secrets of Being Rich. And that could be like all kinds of fun stuff, like how I go about reading the way I do and all the other biohacking stuff I do, plus everything else. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go through all the comments. As always, I really appreciate each and every one of you. And yeah, do it before you take off. If you could share with me how you would if I was going to share a lot more stuff that I read, what do you think would be the best way to have an engaging way for me to deliver it to you, where you would get value and it would make engaging video content, as far as not maybe as heavy as this, and a little bit lighter, definitely, for sure. So let me know about that. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Conor McGregor is fighting. That is Conor McGregor's glove up there. It was a gift. I'll show it to you guys. So that's Conor. And anyway, so I am super looking forward to Saturday, and had a great call this morning with Mike Zappi, who was a friend of mine for about 20 years. I met him in the internet marketing space. He's moved past that, and has produced a bunch of documentaries. One of them is The Reality of Consciousness, where he takes the woman star of Fast and Furious and brings her down to Costa Rica to do ayahuasca. He has another movie coming out like in 2 weeks where he takes LeBron James, not LeBron James. I still don't know basketball. Lamar Odom, the guy that was married to the Kardashian, and he took him down to Mexico and to do ibogaine to overcome certain addictions, and had tremendous success. He is considered by like a lot of magazines and newspapers and TV shows to be the psychedelic concierge of the stars. And I just I'm getting done placing him in a division of Agora, and it will be the very first psychedelic guru that we have, obviously for stocks, but like an expert in the stocks of psychedelics. And so that's kind of cool. And so that was also today. I forgot about that. And there's probably like 5 other ones that I am now completely spacing. But anyway, guys, like I said, I hope you have as good of a weekend as I'm expecting I'm going to have. I have a lot of friends coming to watch the fight. So not only am I going to get to spend some time with friends, but I'm going to watch my very favorite athlete do what he does best. And also, my girlfriend Kim gets back into town. She's been out of town this week, so she comes back. So that's awesome. And so life is good. We moved the business quite a bit forward. And next week, I think we're probably, I would say we already are live, but we haven't sent traffic to it that I'm aware of. But next week, the live stream, the docuseries live stream will be out. And so what that AI promo was for, what the other one is with the 10 free episodes, that will be live as well. And I certainly will be giving you guys a link. And I think that's it. That's it. So thanks, guys. Until Tuesday, I will be looking at your answers, though, and based on your answers, we'll determine what I'm doing Tuesday. Until then, to higher profits and beyond, Rich Schefren, over and out.